Welcome to RecLess, a podcast making people smarter and more knowledgeable about parks and recreation. Your hosts are Shane Mize, Jay Tryon, and Tom Venniro, three career-long friends from around the country, bringing their own unique and sometimes entertaining perspectives with a surprise guest each episode. This is RecLess.
Welcome to RecLess. This is our 14th episode, guys. I can't believe that. It's crazy to think that. And it's our first episode since a couple live versions in Dallas at the NRPA conference. I'm Tom Venniro. I'm your host for today with my co-host, as always, Shane Mize and Jay Tryon. How's it going today, guys?
What's up? How are y'all?
Doing great, man. Happy to be back and look forward to talking to you guys some more.
Yeah. Before we got on here, Jay mentioned how it feels like it's been a while. So yes, our last group chat was maybe Thursday during the week of conference. So it's very interesting when we take a little bit of time off. And so I'm excited to get back into it. We got a great guest today. I believe you all think you have an idea. And so,
well, come on.
You know what? We're going to run with it. And
I think we have an idea. Someone announced themselves as the guest for this date. At conference.
Well, before we get into that, let's get into our intro conversation. And this today I want to talk about some icons in just the country, the world, and maybe even in our field. So some recent news we've had about Britney Spears and Taylor Swift. So what I want to know is, are you guys Swifties or Britneys? I mean, we've got Taylor and Kelsey and Britney with her new book. A lot of drama out there. And so I want to hear, Shane, really what you think about this. And then, of course, Jay.
This is
and of course, Jay.
I'm totally kidding. That is not what I want to talk about today. I just wanted to see your guys' reaction to that.
This is why I think you're the Sean Hayes of our group, by the way.
It might be.
Right there.
I have a lot of influences near me who bring this stuff to me. It is nothing gotcha. In my own brain. However,
and I'll be honest, I have no idea what you're talking about with Britney Spears. Like, I didn't know she had a book. I didn't realize there was something in the news with her again. But then again, I'm not like someone that really keeps up with pop culture. I have my music interest that I listen to. It does not include Taylor Swift or Britney Spears on a regular basis. So I couldn't tell you why they're in the news.
No, my wife already has Britney Spears' book. I mean, we grew up in that. I mean, most of us grew up in that time period, right? When Britney Spears was popular. And, obviously that didn't stay with my interests, but a big icon for my wife. So yes, she has a book out.
She was a Disney girl too, right?
That's true. She was, as was Justin Timberlake, who is also part of this drama. We won't go there. We do have Halloween coming up, which is one of the, I think one of those great escapes for a lot of people out there. People really enjoy their Halloween. Some people don't like it, right? I know that there's some people out there, it's kind of the I hate it or I love it, and some in between. For us, obviously, if you have families, there's probably some personal connection to Halloween, but also in our day jobs, right? We're kind of a steward of these holidays at times. And so a lot of us are running events or just various activities that might go along with the theme of Halloween or fall. So what I really just wanted to talk to you guys today is, what are your thoughts on Halloween personally, professionally? What are and maybe just something fun. What's one costume that either you or your kids have dressed up as that gives you a fond memory or a chuckle?
Looking at me first. So it's funny. This is like the first year that we're not doing like a homemade costume. We typically, my wife will make something and it'll be something that my son sees on YouTube or something he sees on TV that he's like, oh, I want that. My wife will be like, I'll make that. And it ends up taking her a very long time. Then at the end of it, she's like, you better really appreciate this because it took a lot of work. He's just going as a football player. He's playing football this year, tackle football. So he's got his full outfit of pads and helmets and shoulder pads, everything, And then my wife or my daughter will be a cheerleader. She's got a Bills cheerleading outfit that we bought online. So that's exciting. From a work perspective, we've had a lot of fall events that we do. Some are Halloween themed, some are not. They're more fall festivals. But it's a great opportunity for us to just tap in the neighborhood and bring awareness to what we do. Because what we're doing is I was at a rec center a couple of days ago, and they had, I think you said they had like 60 people registered for their fall fest. That's tomorrow. Well, they tapped into our software system that we use, which is active, did a email blast based on zip code. And within 24 hours, their registered list of attendees was up to 200. And some of these folks may not have ever been to that rec center, but because they live in the zip code that they're targeting, are now going to become aware of all the programs that we offer at the rec center. So it's just a great opportunity for us to tap into the communities to show, hey, this is what we do. This is why we're here. We got programs for 4-year-olds up to 94-year-olds and everything in between. So it's exciting to kind of see these programs grow and these events grow based on holidays that then will lead to other things.
No, that's great, Jay. And I'm going to intervene before Shane goes. Two items. So you've got some football players for Halloween in your family. Big Buffalo Bills win last night, right? So
it was a good win. We needed that.
Jay's having a good day. However, I waited for that win and 5 days to show you what I was wearing today.
I haven't talked to you probably since that day.
Yeah, well, I know better. So I'm not going to talk to you about the Patriots fresh off the wound that must have been Sunday. But I did want to wear that shirt today, especially if the Bills won last night. Shane, my wife has been listening to the show recently, so she's actually, I think she's awesome. She's caught up.
She's doubled our audience.
Yes, our viewership is now 2. So she's caught up to Nilay's episode, and one of the last episodes was about you talked a little bit of a story about your birthday where nobody showed up. So
great story.
Her heart was broken for you. I just want to make sure that before you talk about Halloween, we're not going to get another one of those.
No,
I want another one of those.
She actually reached out. She actually reached out to me on the side just to make sure I was okay from that day 20 years ago, or 30 years ago or so. So, more than that now. Maybe 35 years. But growing up for the most part with a single father, Halloween was awesome in the sense that he was like, just go out and go door to door and grab as much candy as you want and find your friends and have a fun night. This won't surprise you much, but he wasn't. So I wasn't much of a costume guy. I wasn't doing wasn't doing a lot of dressing up. I mean, it's like, you put on sweatpants and you say you're Hulk Hogan or something, and you go out there and maybe you might have a Jason mask on. There wasn't a lot. It wasn't super involved when I was growing up. Now our kids, probably to counteract that, growing up, I've allowed them to do whatever. If they want to go to the store and they want to buy $100 outfit, Hannah's always like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "It's cool. It's fine. Even if they wear it one time, it's a memory." And so some years they've made stuff themselves. Like we used to have an old paintball gun, and they had we had some sort of coveralls, and they just used a paintball gun and just sprayed all over it and we had a mask, and they went out looking like they were some sort of zombie apocalypse. My youngest, Landry, loves a nice coordinated outfit. She loves to go into one of those stores that pop up, around the 1st of October, and they're there for for a month. And I don't know how that business plan works, but they seem to only work about 6 weeks out of the year. She loves to go into those and go aisle by aisle until she finds something, and then she'll make it somehow morbid where, it's a princess and she puts blood coming out one side of her head or the other, and she goes around. And so they have a lot of fun. My third born, we chuckled about it the other day, Hannah and I. He like his dad, highly sensitive, not much into dressing up. And we didn't know that. When they're 2, 3, 4, or 5 years old, they can't really express some of that. So you put them in a Woody outfit or a Buzz outfit. We have them coming in a Buzz outfit, and I believe Melissa was telling me Jack's in a Buzz this year, right? Is that correct?
Correct.
We'll have to slideshow compare the Buzz outfits, because poor Hayden, he didn't like that it touched the bottom of his feet, or the bottom of the thing touched his shoes or whatever. And every photo of him that we have that year is him crying. In fact, probably the first 3 or 4 years, every outfit we have of him is just open face cry. So, it's fun. Now, all of our kids are older, obviously. And so they get dressed up and they go and they find their friends and they walk the neighborhoods and they get in cars and go into other neighborhoods. And me and Hannah have so much fun. We just sit on, y'all aren't at that age, I don't think, because y'all are probably out with y'all's kids trick-or-treating. But there's something really cool about being in a neighborhood, having a shit ton of candy, and just watching these little kids, these little families, these little groups come walking by in their little ballerina outfits and the G.I. Joes and the Spider-Mans and all the things you see every year. And they're so sweet, and they ask for candy, and you let them grab a big handful, and they think it's the coolest thing they've ever done. And the parents are like, "Put some back." And we're like, no, we bought more than enough. We want to see every kid, walk away with as much as they want. So that's really fun now, to be in the community, to allow kids just grab a handful of candy, to stuff it in their bag, to ask them who they are, to see them tell who they are. I hope adults listening to this, adults across the country, are continuing to be active on that side of Halloween, because it's sad for me when I look across at even neighbors or other streets and they have adults and they may or may not have any kids, but the lights are off. And it's like, come on. It's a great opportunity to spoil those kids in the neighborhood, to give those kids an opportunity to go around and be Buzz that night or Spider-Man or whatever they think they are, and to get as much candy as possible. So I love it. Halloween's great. I've done it for special events before. We don't necessarily do it here in Pflugerville, but other cities, we had Halloween themes events, and they were always fun. Trunk or treats, different things. I think anytime you get kids dressing up and you can give them a shit ton of candy, it's a fun time, no matter what side of that equation you're on.
I agree. And Halloween's always one of those favorite times of year for me, just in general. The fall, we've talked about this. I love the fall, and with the fall comes Halloween, and then of course Thanksgiving, all these great things. We as a family, we I don't think you'll believe this. This is probably very hard to believe, but we do get into costumes, right?
Dressing up.
Really?
It's odd, right? So
no way.
I'll just share a few, but one that was really fun. One that was really fun in Parks and Rec, kind of related, or I guess sport related. My wife went as Wendy and Squints one year from the Sandlot. Nice. That was a lot of fun. We've done Carl and his wife and Doug from the movie Up, and so I have a golden retriever who passed recently, but he used to really be very tolerant of dressing up. So that dog in Up wore a cone around and looked just like my dog, so we took him along with us for that one. Was
that on the Tinder profile? Tolerant of dressing up? Is that one of these?
Let's see, what else have we done? We've done a lot of fun stuff, but it's
Superman.
It's not...
Hannah just sent me a screenshot
Superman.
of you.
Oh, that's
Superman.
Great. That's great. No, I'm glad that you're all sharing those photos around. And so, we've done Marty from Back to the Future, and the dog dressed up as Doc. So anyway, some fun stuff. I swear my wife was there for these, but I somehow remember the dog's costume. So anyhow, my kids recently, 3 and 1, as we've talked about, that's brought a whole new joy to it. Jack is going to be Buzz this year. He was Woody last year. He loves his Toy Story, and he was a little fox his first year as a baby, and that was really cute. This little fox costume just covered him up. And as you know, in this part of the country, you're getting weather like today, which is 75 degrees on October 27th, or you're getting what we're looking at as a call for snow on October 31st, 40 degrees. So the fox costume will come in handy, because we're going to just bundle up Amelia in that this year, which I feel bad. My wife tells me I have to talk about Amelia more. She says I talk about Jack way more on this show. And I just say, it's just substance. He's 3. He does a lot more than Amelia does. Amelia's great. And now I feel bad. Yeah, he's content. Now I feel bad because I'm bringing her up and she's wearing a hand-me-down for Halloween. So,
those where your priorities are.
I guess so.
YouTube lives forever, dude. You're gonna have to start being nicer.
I know. I got to figure some stuff out. It's all right. Well, she'll grow on me.
There you go.
It's so either way, as far as our community events, I echo what you all do, and just will share that we actually have started doing our event on Halloween this year. And Shane, part of that is coming out of COVID. It was a lesson that we learned from there. The other part of it is that sad truth that you mentioned, is that neighborhoods are not participating as much as they had been when we grew up, right? So there's a lot of lights off, no decoration houses, and that's kind of a sad thing to see. So we're just trying to give the community another place where they could pretty much say, this is your trick-or-treat headquarters. You want to go somewhere else? By all means, do it. But there's a lot to do here, and to your point, just a place for the kids to get as much candy as possible and enjoy the festivities.
To that point, Hannah and I don't go in and out of the house, and wait for someone else to knock. We're on our driveway.
Yeah. And
we usually have some sort of blinking flashing light, and we're one house from the turn. If a car's driving through a neighborhood and they look down the street, they see 3 lights on. Sometimes it's not worth it to have to get my little kid out, walk him, trying to get him back. I'll go look for a street that has 5 or 8 homes, lit. And so I think it is something we're seeing more and more of. Definitely something as a kid, I thought every door I went to, it felt like was giving out candy, and now that's not the case, which is super sad.
Yes, it is. Well, let's move on to our guest, right? So I feel like every time we do this, I tell our guests it's going to be like a 5 to 8 minute conversation, and that was far longer than 5 to 8. So I do apologize, but we have a great guest today. And so I'd like to give you all a little bit of information about who's with us. As many of our guests, our guest is an Academy member.
Okay.
Okay, so I know that seems like a trend for everybody out there, but it won't always be the case, of course.
Did we ride an elevator with this person recently?
I don't know. I can't confirm or deny that. Our guest has also recently been elected to the American Parks and Recreation Foundation Board. The guest spent 7 years on the NRPA board as a board of directors member. A claim to fame of this guest after having a conversation or many conversations is the accomplishments and work with public and private partnerships. A very interesting fact about this guest that I actually recently just learned, and their family kind of goes by this saying for them, is 2 careers, career 1.0 and career 2.0. Career 1.0 was in the restaurant industry, 2.0 in the parks and rec industry.
I know who this is.
All right. Well, I think you have a little bit of an in on the guest in terms of, I won't go there. Yeah. So our guest, very, very, really, very cool fact about this guest.
Our guest would recognize this brand.
Yes, most likely. Yeah. Really cool fact, fun fact. Our guest is a basically a lifetime learner. Started studying at a university in the fall of 1969 and obtained their first degree in December of 1997, almost 30 years, followed by receiving an MBA in December of 2008. Former chair of the NRPA Legislative Committee, larger than life personality, not unlike the state where they come from. And I believe, Shane, I believe you know who it is at this point.
Well, I thought it was Jody Adams until you said a restaurateur. And there's only one person I know in NRPA that has been in the academy, has been on the board of directors, and owned a series of Burger Kings in Houston back in the day. I am guessing it's
Wait. Turner. Jay, did you have any idea?
I did not know, but if it is who Shane just mentioned, I had a great conversation a couple weeks ago in Dallas with them.
Yes, Jay, that was going to be a guest. Jay and I enjoyed a meal with the Academy that our guest was at. And our guest has recently retired from 13 years of one of the largest agencies in the country, the city of Houston. Please welcome Joe Turner.
Hey, what's up, Joe?
What's up, good man?
Yeah, you're not Jody Adams.
No, I'm not. She's the sports side of the world. I'm the restaurant side of the world.
That's right.
These guys thought it was Jody the whole time. Joe, I don't know if I shared it with you, but
hold on. We didn't think it was Jody. She told us on the elevator, "I'll see you October 27th." So Tom had to pivot a little bit, which was great. But
yeah, so it's great to know great people like Joe and Jody who allowed me to pivot and at least have a little bit of the element of surprise for the both of you today.
That's
great.
Joe,
how are you doing? How you been? It was great to see you in Dallas.
Doing well. Things are good. Enjoyed seeing y'all in Dallas. It was great to see everyone. I didn't make the conference the year before. It's always great to see the next generation running the operations, as I like to say. But then, you guys are aging because there's a group under you, a bunch of young ones coming up. And that's part of what we all have to do is pass on the knowledge we have today to those coming up.
Absolutely. And yes, thank you for reminding me of the aging process. It's become more and more real every day. And, I want to start with what I really love about having Joe on here. And I think Shane and Jay, you would agree, is we're going to cover some topics that maybe we traditionally haven't. So Joe comes with an incredible body of work. And something I met one of Joe's former colleagues in Dallas, and we talked about the upcoming elections. And so Joe worked in Houston, which is quite large, right? So top 4 in terms of the country, in terms of population size, right? Joe, you worked 13 years in Houston, and you also worked through 4 different mayors.
3
different mayors. Yes.
3 different mayors.
3 different mayors. And as I understand, you don't have a city manager. Your mayor is basically your de facto chief operations officer.
They are the CEO.
Okay, so going through that, I think locally too, we experience this here at certain levels, but I would guess that at those top levels of government, you see it a little bit more when new administrations come in, new political agendas come in, and a lot of the times administration cleans house and brings in their own people. You were able to work through 3 different administrations and 3 different leaders as mayor. Take us through that. How were you able to stay in your role and do it so successfully over that time span?
Well, I guess, for those who live through that environment, you expect when there's a major change of the mayor, you expect a rule of thumb is you're probably going to get a new police chief, you're probably going to get a new fire chief, you're probably going to need a new public works director, and there's a good chance you're going to get a new city attorney. After that, all the other directors sort of come below that level. You almost expect that. I don't know how it's done in other areas. I know when I transitioned from Mayor White to Mayor Parker, she had an interview process she went through. I don't mind telling you, I put the whole little book together about the department. She had been our controller, so I knew her a little, but realized the city controller, is not in city government per se under the mayor. I used to say, it's amazing how they can present the same numbers at the end of the month, and there's two different ways to look at it, from the controller for the city and then the elected city controller. But I went and met with her. She took my book and threw it to the side. And I went, this is going downhill fast, And she said, her question was, I have a couple lines I've had in life that have been very meaningful that just popped off my head. And she said, so, are you thinking about hanging around? And I said, it just came out automatically. And I said, I don't know. I thought I'd hang around about 6 years. How about you? Well, at that point, they could run 3 times for 2-year terms. And so that was it. She was fun to work with. And it's just an environment you have to get used to. It's nonpartisan, but it truly ends up being nonpartisan. Most major cities, as a rule of thumb, are Democratic. But you have to learn how to work within that environment. And I used to use the same thing at the federal level. I did a lot of work at the NRPA, the legislative level. And quite honestly, President Obama was elected. We all know politics and where people lean which way. And the industry, particularly our world, was all excited about President Obama coming in, and it was, good to come in, but it doesn't change everything. And what I used to say, it's all about that partnerships you have to do. In fact, I was quoted in a couple of magazines. My line used to be, it takes red and blue to equal green. Green land, green money, green anything. You've got to have that working together relationship to get anything done in this world. Whether we believe it or not, there's always that undercurrent that are working together, cross lines, cross parties, cross whatever, to help fund projects. If you don't, we've just seen, you see stalemates. And you never know where an individual is really connected to. And just like we were talking here, it may be they grew up in a park, and they may be, I'll use a staunch Republican, but you know what? They remember where they came from. They remember how they lived. They want that for their kids, and they become great allies for you. And it's up to us putting those partnerships together. But the politics, Houston is in an uproar right now. They have an election, 2 candidates that are probably going to be in the runoff. I don't think either one will make it in November. And so then there'll be a runoff December 9th, and then they will take over around January, I think it's 21st or 22nd this year. And we're used to that. I didn't know there was any different because I grew up, I'm a native Houstonian. I didn't know what a city manager was, but I don't mind saying about 6-7 years ago I was asked, somebody was courting me, and of course they had a city manager government, and I did a little investigation, and I came to the conclusion, I like to be in charge. If I'm the parks director, I want to be in charge, and all you guys know, parks can be very political, right, wrong, or indifferent, and I want that politicalness as short as it can be from me to the mayor. I don't want anybody in the middle of it. It's just a different world that city operates in. I worked 2 years prior to the city for a county commissioner. When I tell this story, they always say, "Do what?" So Houston has 4 county commissioners. Most of the county, their precincts of their districts that the county commissioner has, it's bigger than Rhode Island's built. They're bigger than quite a few states just their precinct. Well, in Houston, each county commissioner has their own park system. There is not no joint park system. They run them individually, and they're all run totally different. And so it's just, how you do business within that environment to be successful.
Houston's a big area, and we brag about that in Texas a lot, but I saw a map overlay of the state of Connecticut, and it overlaid over Houston metro area. People don't realize how big Houston is. So, when you're a county commissioner of a quarter of it, you could be running something as big as the whole state of Rhode Island for sure.
Yeah, I had a map that showed the city of Houston, and actually there were 9 states inside the city limits.
Isn't that crazy?
When we talk about how big we are and why we struggle with some of the issues, just because it's so large. And what really becomes important, and I brought that from the restaurant world, is windshield time. How much windshield time is our staff having to do business? And some of that I changed the way we did business based on what I did in the restaurant world.
Joe, I don't live in the Houston area anymore, neither do you. We're out in the hill country. But I was in Missouri City, you were in Houston, and I got to know you really well, and a great amount of respect for you. But one of the things I always from afar appreciated was you said exactly what you said. You were the top dog of Houston Parks and Rec, and you were right under the mayor. But you also didn't mind who built your parks. You had a philosophy on partnership that it felt like almost anybody could come in and partner with you and build a green space that could provide quality of life. And I don't know if we see that in our industry. There's plenty of times it feels like in our industry that people are very protective of who comes in and who designs and who does what. That wasn't necessarily the case with you and your role.
No, and I'll tell you why. I spent 30 years dealing with legal agreements, and most of that time, and the system I was in, they were franchisees is who did our business. We were a 90+% franchise business. So legal agreements meant everything. Well, then I moved into this world, and, when I was on the board of NRPA, I fought for public-private partnerships. There had been a couple bad ones in other places in the country, and my line was a public-private partnership can be truly successful, but the first thing that has to happen, you as a director, I know you have attorneys, but you have to read that agreement and make sure that agreement is giving you what you wanted out of it. You're the owner of that land. You're the steward of that facility. In the job description of the park director in Houston, it says you're the steward of all public land. I took that very personal. And so those agreements have to spell out. And so many times I say when there was this deal didn't work, it was a bad deal, I said, no, probably had a bad agreement. Public is public. I try to remind people, I love to take your money, but you got to understand it's going to be a public use facility. We may make some concessions somehow how we operate it, but it's public. Our attorneys used to say, it's one of Joe's contracts coming in. We don't even read it till he's marked it up. And I used to say, that's right, I read it all, and then it starts all that liability mumbo jumbo crap. That's what y'all do. I don't do that, but what I do is make sure it spells out what I expect to get out of this agreement, and I want to make sure that partner understands what they're getting out of the agreement. No gray areas. Gray areas are what destroy relationships.
And I wanted to follow up because not only do you not care who builds your parks necessarily or who you work with, but you also you weren't worried about who managed them.
When I got hired by Mayor White, I was hired by Mayor White for one of those monumental lines I came up. He asked a specific question. I was told I was going to be with him about 30 minutes. I ended up an hour and a half with him in my interview. First into it, he asked me one simple question. What business are we in the parks business? That was it. That was the question. And I had one simple answer back to him. We're in the service business. We provide services. And he said, Joe, none of the interviews I've gone through have said that. I said, well, I don't know what to say, Mayor. I say in the parks, we provide services, for our communities, for our city, for our state. And so to that line, I didn't have to be the provider of those services personally, our department. I just needed those services were being provided. that changes the whole outlook how you run your operation. It was a big thing, 10-minute walk to parks, all this green space and the things we get graded on. I didn't need to own all that land. I just needed to make sure it was public land. We became very involved. We had 17 school districts within our city limits. They were very important to me because we had an organization that worked with schools to build playgrounds. And they locked those playgrounds in during school, and then they were locked out to the community after school and on the weekends. Well, guess what? I may not have a park in that community or some green space, but I could live with that piece of property. And so that entity just celebrated their 40th year. This year it's called the Spark Program. And I was their biggest advocate because it helped me to get park space open, available. And the piece I liked also was I didn't have to maintain it. That's even better. Yeah. But I could claim it as green space. I never was concerned about getting the glory. I wasn't concerned about owning it. I was I got, in most cases, a lower income community that needs park space. How do I get it accomplished?
Well, and back to what your mayor asked you about what you're providing and what you do, whether it's the city of Houston running an activity or a park or a partner, the end result may not even be known to the user of who owns the property, who manages the property, and who's running that program, because they just want the park, they want the programs, and it really doesn't matter. I think we're having a lot of those conversations in our department, and I talk to folks around the country when it comes to programming, like what's that balance of how much programming your staff do in your facilities versus contracted out or partnerships.
Right. And
the partnerships a lot of times may be more important because they bring a skill set, outside groups bring a skill set that your staff may not have. You know, I don't have staff that can be trained or certified in martial arts, but I can bring someone in that can do that. And to the public, if they want martial arts, they don't know whether it's park and rec staff or whether it's contracted. So as long as we're providing the service, that's really what matters.
Yeah, they want the service. I mean, I did many agreements with the county commissioners. We did a thing called an interlocal, and actually I could interlocal the park to a county commissioner. They would have it. The agreement said they could have it for 25 years, and early on, it was a 2.5-page document. It was the best document we had in the whole city. The county commissioner could come into a facility, a small park we were working, as long as it had good infrastructure, they could invest, new playgrounds, new fencing, new this, new that, and all, and then they'd get the credit. And everybody would say, don't you have a problem with them getting credit for that? I said, no. I'm happy the community got a new park. They did a playground. I got a list of 100 more. Which one do you want? You have to broaden your outlook. You don't need to be the operator of everything as long as you're getting that service provided. I used to use this other line. Prior, when I was in the county, they called me a park administrator. And I'll be honest, I like the term administrator because in a lot of your big urban cities, those individuals don't have park backgrounds. That's your job, is to find that individual who's the expert that can provide that service you need to deliver for the community, or it needs to be delivered. My best partners were the health department and the library director. Both of those are still there. We both came in about the same time, and we worked a lot together. Dr. Lawson, who's a librarian, who's phenomenal, we'd be in meetings and she'd start who she was and all they did, and then she'd look at me and get that smile and shake her head, because when it was time for me to introduce myself, I used to just say, I cut her grass and pick her trash up. That's what I do. But it was that partnership, and we built this huge facility that all three of us are in, and we're all in it. And part of the reason was I wanted in it. It's a huge area that needed service for the library, and we actually have a third an entity operated between, so the three of us are in it. But the best thing about it was Sundays, when I'm the busiest in the park, the library and the health department ain't open. So I got a lot of parking. We all have the same customer. Yeah. Now, how do we deliver the service better and more economically with the dollars we have? How do we broaden those reaches?
Joe, not a lot of people know, but you would be an incredible person to participate in the Two Truths and a Lie game, because you got a lot of interesting things that you could throw up there to see if anybody could guess. A nature center named after you, correct?
Yes.
Your son is in the NASCAR business.
No, IndyCar.
IndyCar, okay.
We follow NASCAR, but he's IndyCar.
He's
So
IndyCar.
I guess that's a lie.
There's the lie.
There's a lot
There's
of
your lie.
NASCAR.
What's the third fact?
The old Joe's old office is the central headquarters of the old NASA building.
It was the original manned space headquarters. In fact, a thing to that was when they brought the program to Houston, they had about 2 weeks, and they leased about 7, 8 buildings all around that area. And our building, which looked really rough, was actually manned space headquarters.
Okay.
And I used to call all that things that people would tell me, I called those, instead of saying they were lying, I called it an urban myth. And so we worked a long time with NASA, finalizing all that. NASA sent us a picture. I hated that building when I moved in, like all the previous directors. So I had 2 black and white photos they sent. On one photo, it showed the building with the NASA logo on it. And then out front, we had this sign. It had not only did it say it was Manned Space Headquarters, it had the Gemini astronauts all out in front of it. John Glenn wasn't there that day, but the rest of them were. And I used to carry that around with me, and Mayor White was a visual mayor. If I could take him things to show him maps, term we used internally, I never told him the term until after he wasn't mayor again. we had a phrase that we said, we're going to crank him up, which meant we're going to get him excited, and we're going to get some money out of this deal. And those 2 black and white pictures got me $10 million to upgrade that facility, which ended up with local status, state status. It's a national it's a national registry landmark, and it was gold certified when we did it from Leeds. And everybody used to say, where the $10 million came from? I said, I don't ask that question, guys. You don't understand how to do business. He said I had $10 million. I just tell finance department, the mayor said I have $10 million. Where's it coming from? History was the fun part about all our facilities, what you could track back to find out the pieces and all the true interest of all those buildings and those families that gave us that land.
It's very cool. I mean, all of us work in areas where sooner or later you get invited to another location for a meeting, a regional meeting or whatnot. I used to love it when Houston hosted because it was like literally walking into a time machine. You just got to see so many cool things, and your mind could really wander around in there. It's really cool.
Well, I always tell the story. The building at that point wasn't big enough. We had too much staff, and so it has the look of a Frank Lloyd Wright development. And the 2 original architects were admirers of his back in when it was built in 61, 62. So when we got ready to do the project, somebody had to come out of the building. There just wasn't enough room. So I didn't convince. I told the rec department, I said, y'all are having to come out. They weren't real happy. And I said, but in the back, I'm going to build you a facility and a warehouse we have. And of course, the word warehouse didn't go over well. But when we built it and we put all the lighting in it and the way it sits and all the colors, because the architect was doing muted colors in the original building because we were trying to keep the 60s look. But all the equipment, all furniture and everything was the same. We just color coded it different. So when we did that building, I told the rec department, you're going to have the coolest building. Well, when they finally saw it, they understood and they agreed. And I said, and part of the reason we did it, 2 reasons. One, they work different hours. Right. They function differently than our regular building. So it was easy to manage it that way. And the other one was they had a loading dock. And that loading dock meant a lot of how we handled supplies for them coming in and out. Be focused into what you do. When I was hired, all the green entities in the city of Houston had done a 2-year study, and they had 12 issues that were the problems with the department. I read them, being a novice, went, oh, this ain't hard to do. What I did not know, and I told them up front, we can get 11 of them. When I came in, it was evident we couldn't cut grass and pick up trash. That was it. And of course, they called it de-litter. And I said, okay, you can call it de-litter all day long. It's trash, man. But I said, we'll give you. And so we worked 2 years to get that under control. And we had this slogan when we first started. It says, we pick up trash and we cut grass to make clean parks. I'm happy to see a clean park with no trash in it. And after about 2 years, I told them all, I said, okay, we're going to add a little comma, and the rest of it says, we cut grass and pick up trash, comma, and now we get to do what we want to. That crowd, that group that maintains the parks, and that group that runs our community centers, that's our face to the community. Our line was, when people complain, we met them in the park. They used to be amazed. They got an email that says, are you available next Tuesday? We'll meet you there. And they said, you're coming out? I said, well, yeah, you got a problem. And we tried to win them over.
Yeah.
And be our ally. They couldn't believe I was answering emails. I go, I think that's my job. One of the mayor candidates in Houston, one of our past state reps, they interviewed him. They were talking about him, and I love this line. And the letters were WYSIWYG. It's what you see is what you get. Let me tell you what, that's me. What you see is what you get. You got to understand that community. We call our parks are, especially in our lower income areas, they should be the bright spot in the neighborhood. Those kids, it's not their fault they're in the situation they are in. It's to us to give them a chance up and a chance out and a chance to be successful. I'll hush. I could talk forever.
Joe, I think and guys, correct me if you disagree, but I think we could do a whole season with Joe.
Yeah.
and honestly, there's so much that I want to ask you. And
Joe may not need us.
Joe
could lead his own podcast.
You and I had a conversation earlier about Dusty Baker, who just retired as manager of the Houston Astros, and how you pay attention. I mean, clearly you're always a student of everything going on based on what you're telling us here. And you told me some really funny things that Dusty said, that those will stay with you. So share with us, just maybe outside of what you've already shared, some more of those lines.
One of Dusty's lines was, he always said he tried not to be ugly. And he said, because his mama said, God don't like ugly. And you learned a lot from a guy like that. And he also, one of his lines was, we're here at that point in his life, he's there to impart to you the younger group coming up. I would suggest you watch his interview. I'm sure it's on Facebook, YouTube. It's about 15 minutes. But the insight of how that man was raised and how he did business, and what drove him, and he's, point blank, he said, I like to win. That's what drives me. I like to win. I was complaining about some of our capital projects. The line was, well, we're doing the best with the money we have available. I said, okay. And so I brought the whole group together a couple of weeks later, and I said, look, that line don't work no more. So here's what happens now. We're going to do half the projects, and we're going to take the heat for the half we're not doing, so we can do the first half right, so I can check it off a list. Instead of keep coming back to it all the time, we're going to get rid of that one. That's how you take control. You have to make choices. You have to be in charge. You got to take the good with the bad. You got to be a visionary, man. Here's my other line I live by. A good park project will probably take 10 plus years. In my opinion, a park is here for infinity. 10 years is a short timeline to get it right and do it properly. It's fast food 101. You're managing a brand. It's your brand. Nobody messed with the H Park brand. If they did, they heard from us. And you guys can do the same thing, because you're doing good work, but you're also creating an image, a perception.
Before we let you go today, can we play a little game where all of us ask you a question about something that's like one of these big highlights or the best of Joe Turner? So I just want to, we're all going to go around the horn. We'll each do one, maybe two, if someone has a bonus one.
Wait, before you ask me one, let me give you one. My highlight was yesterday.
Really?
Yesterday, I chair our park advisory board, and I've been the chair for the last 5 years, I think. That's right, 4 years. Yesterday, we broke ground on our $25 million sports complex, phase one. It's a $40 million. It had more issues than you could ever imagine. Went through 2 bond cycles, And we finally got it broke ground yesterday. And I could talk for months, and I don't even run the project. I know all the issues.
You got to tell everybody what city that is or what.
I said New Braunfels,
Yep.
and it's going to have 4 softball fields, 4 baseball fields, got a Texas Parks and Wildlife grant for a playground and a walking trail, ample parking, and all the infrastructure to take all of it a little further once we get this first one. But that project has been a thorn in everybody's side because, you know, it got right at the beginning of all escalation costs, utility issues and this and that. So that's mine. We broke ground yesterday. Now I'll hush. Go ahead.
Still retired,
awesome.
but still doing it. Congratulations. I'm going to go on a personal level. You told me at the conference about how you're a really proud grandfather and how lucky you are. And you know, I want to reverse that and just say how lucky your grandkids are to have you as well. So this isn't necessarily, you can spin it that way to your grandkids, but what about, we started this show talking about Halloween. Best Halloween moment for you, Joe, whether it's personal or professional.
Halloween, you know, Halloween, one of my daughters lives in a neighborhood where they do their own Halloween. They have a big field, a walking field. They do their own, it's mind-boggling. They do their own July 4th celebration. And so we go with them to see all these young kids. It's a safe environment, and they're all in their uniforms. You know, I got two sixth graders. They're sort of, you know, bucking it a little these days now. And still got my princess. She's a kindergartner. Oh, she's first grade. I grew up sort of like Shane mentioned, you know, we didn't really dress up much, but we were in the streets like you cannot believe. But it was a different time. It was safe. You know, the worst thing was going to be is a water balloon. It was a big time. We like to give candy and see all the kids come out and just want them to have a great time.
Okay, I got one, Joe. Working in the city as long as you have, and with the Texans, the Astros, all the political people, all the concerts that have come through, I bet you have some crazy famous contacts in your cell phone. Who is the most famous contact you have?
I have a various selection. I have luckily been known to know. I hate dropping names.
Let's
One
hear
of
it.
the people who means the most to me personally for what he did for my department and still will continue to do is Jim Crane, the owner of the Houston Astros. I was with him Saturday night at the game. Bottom line, he was the greatest guy in the world. He's still the greatest guy in the world. All he wanted to do was give kids, in most cases, a good experience playing baseball, league baseball. We really did not run leagues, but we had leagues all over the city. And they came in, they took our fields and would upgrade them, grade them, irrigation, uniforms for the kids, and 5-year maintenance on those fields. And when I left, Jim had done 35 fields for us. And I'm not going to give you any other names. I'll give you Jim, and I'll leave it at Jim.
Jim Crane's a big name in a cell phone, brother.
That's awesome. And to be hanging out at the game the other night, a playoff game, that's impressive. And I'm sure, an amazing experience.
Yeah. Okay, so I think it's Jay's turn to ask the round robin.
Yeah, Joe, really quick, last one, and I think we'll call it a day. But we talked earlier, and you mentioned, maybe Shane, Tom, and I are an aging group. So there's a lot of younger professionals that we're working with and we talk to on a daily basis. We still look to a lot of the current directors and retired directors that we speak with on a regular basis for advice and just guidance. What's one piece of advice that you would give the up and coming professionals that are in our field and looking to grow as leaders in our development of just people?
I think the biggest thing they've got to do, they've got to be open. They've got to be somebody that can be called upon. You all know if you've got someone that's working hard, that's an individual you can call on. I groom different ones because you just see that spark. And so it's working with those younger individuals, to get them to value what you do as a system. But at the same time, you got to push them. I know y'all going to find this hard to believe. I truly am an introvert. I had an HR director took me after the interview because I didn't get the job. And he said, Joe, your performances are phenomenal, but you have to learn to participate. You have to speak up. So I learned to get over that and learn to participate and be part of it. So I'll leave it at that.
No, that's a great way to end it. Well, thank you, Joe. We appreciate you being our guest this week on episode 14. What a great conversation. And like I said, we'll have to schedule parts 2, 3, and 4, and 5 and 6, and how many ever, because there's so much we didn't get to. But I really appreciated everything you shared with us today.
Well, I thank you guys, because y'all are the next shaker, as they like to say, the next shaker and movers for us in all different parts of the country. And, parks are the great equalizer. Everyone deserves a great park. A great park means we've had the funds to make it what it could be for that community. I challenge you guys to go out there and give us great parks. That may happen today, or you may solve it in 7 years. Remember, that park's going to be there forever.
I love that. Thanks, Joe.
Thank y'all.
All right, Joe. Have a good one.
Awesome. Thank you, Joe. That's a great way to close that out, what he just said.
It's a good perspective when you think that a park's going to be there for 100 years. So we all feel that, right? Like a city council member or a mayor or somebody's like, hey, when's this thing going to open? Let's get it open. And it's like, hey, let's take 2 more months.
Yeah.
Let's do it right. 3 more months, whatever it takes, knowing that for 100 years, we'll be happy we did. I think that's a great perspective.
It's so funny. I'm so glad we had that conversation with him too, because we're opening a dog park. We wanted to open it this fall. The weather is never great. You can't really find the best time. And then of course, with any kind of construction, right, generally in a park, you have restoration work that comes with it. Mm-hmm. And so my mind said, force it. People want it. They've been anticipating it, force it. And just 2 weeks ago, we made a decision where we sat down at the table. We said, we're not going to do that. We need to do this right. We need to restore the facility. We need to make it so that it's ready to open and that people can enjoy it for years to come. And so that perspective that Joe just gave really kind of reaffirmed a little bit of what we were doing.
Yeah.
Well, that was a good surprise, because I was expecting Jody out.
I thought it had to be someone different, just for like the clear sake of surprise, and also not letting us win, because obviously you didn't want us to know, and that way you had to change it up. So
Joe.
Well, and the other thing was with the expectation that like there was a text about Jody and it's like it's going to be Jody today. I was like, no, it's too easy. He's going to do something different.
Joe said it. I just want to win. You were right, Jay. That is the mindset, and it's kind of funny too, because what if Jody was just in on this elaborate prank on you guys?
Oh, and she's not been a guest. Okay, yeah, we'll see.
No, because I saw your reaction post the elevator. It was pure disappointment.
As my wife would say, I do not have a good poker face most of the time. Yes, you are correct, Shane.
Threw something on the ground.
That reaction was genuine.
That's awesome.
All right, guys, I am really glad we got to have Joe and have that conversation. I am looking forward to episode 15 to come. Who we got on the docket? Who's bringing that one to all of us?
Jody Adams.
I'm up next. And okay. I just won't talk to you for a couple of weeks, and so that I don't slip like you would.
All right, guys, let's call it a day. We want to thank all of our guests and, of course, Joe Turner. We want to thank you all for joining us on another episode of RecLess. And for Jay and Shane, I'm Tom Venniro, and we'll see you next time.
See you guys.
Take care, guys.